Tell us about planning, so pre-production, wearing both hats as the DP and the director. What are you doing beforehand?
You know, it's weird because for me, this is the only way I know how to do it. I've never only been the director of anything. I've never let somebody else shoot a project that I was also directing. So I don't know the other way. I don't know how to do it the other way. I don't know how to think about how I'm going to direct it without thinking about how I'm also going to shoot it. So my planning involves both, pretty much simultaneously and seamlessly, really. When I think about a scene, I visualize it. Like I'm looking at how it will be shot already. And that's almost like, at this point, it's like riding a bike to me. Like I don't even need to think about it on a detailed level about how something's going to be filmed. And I kind of ran into some issues early on because there was an expectation to get storyboards from me early on. And I just, again, I don't like doing what I don't want to do. And I felt storyboards were not necessary because I'm the one shooting the film, also directing the film. I didn't really feel the need for that. Because it's already like in my head. You know, when I'm reading a script, even when I read scripts that I'm just the cinematographer on, I'm reading the script and it's playing out in my head how it's going to be shot. There might be small adjustments on the day, but for the most part, it's already pretty much shot in my head before we even get to set. So it's hard for me to like. I had to axe that part of my pre-production out because it took too much time for me to physically sit there and draw what my mind was thinking. It would have taken me days to do this, and I needed to spend that time as a cinematographer and a director working on other things. So I didn't do that, and I think it confused people early on because they didn't really understand how my mind worked in that regard. But once we got on set and you saw how things ran, it was understandable, I think, for everybody, because it was just really smooth sailing as far as the shooting goes. And when I'm in the middle of a sequence, and the thing about working with such great actors is they'll bring stuff to the table and they'll inject things into the scene that I never could have thought of. However, there's an energy to the way I film it where I'm right there with them, right? And as a director, that helps me also because I'm literally like inches or feet away from the actor while they're doing their performance, and I can feel it. I can feel the aura that's coming off of them when they're doing their thing, and I take that and put it back into the camera. So I'm like right there with them, and I'm attached to them with that energy. And I think that's part of my style, and I can't really divorce myself from that. I don't think it's not something that I have the ability to separate anymore. It's just something that I need to do. I need to be operating the camera if I'm the director, because I can truly watch it from an audience member's perspective by being that close to it. Just looking at a monitor of it later, like it's a different movie to me when I'm seeing just flat images and I'm not hearing their voice actually right next to me. I'm hearing it through a microphone. It's a different experience for me than it is to be right there next to them, feeling what they're doing and translating that into what I'm. There was an scene, for example, where Muse Watson's character is like barreling up the hallway and everybody's running out of the room trying to figure out what's going on, why he's shouting, because he's got dementia. And he's just kind of like going off in this ramble. And it was one of the coolest single take shots I've ever done as a cinematographer, but also as a director, because I was literally right in the scene with them and I was looking with the camera at things that caught my attention that I felt an audience would probably want to look at if they heard it. So things were happening and I was getting in the face of some of the actors while they were doing their thing, and I was coming back out and I was going around people and pulling focus from one person to the other while they're observing the other people reacting to things. It's kind of like if I was standing there myself, which I was, going around and trying to notice the things that I thought were the most important in the scene, I grabbed that with the camera. Sometimes it's not always the person talking, but it's the person watching the person talking. And I was able to grab that, and I think the actors like it too, because they all have to be on their game. It's not just the person speaking that has to be on their game. It's the person that's standing next to them or the person that's behind them or across from them. I'm going to get that stuff if I think it's good, and so the actors want to give me more as a result. I think that's what they say to me, at least. Maybe that's chaotic for them, I don't know, but I feel like I get better energy from them when I'm in the moment with them. And there's something satisfying to me on a personal level too, when I'm, when they nail it and I nail it, it's like a team effort, and you're like, there's something to be proud of there. And I can make very small, minute character adjustments in this mode because I can be right there looking at what they're doing with their hand or their eyes and taking all that in, and I can come up to them and privately and just whisper a little thing in their ear, and they know exactly what I'm talking about because they also know that I'm noticing that, and they're like, oh shit, he noticed that. Good, I'll give them something else next time. So there's a little bit of, I keep them on their game by doing that, I think. There's less separation. I couldn't just be behind a monitor shouting direction at someone, or that works for a lot of people, but I've never done that before, so I don't know how to do it that way. So I guess it doesn't seem unusual to me.
So you're like an empath with the camera almost. You're empathic, you can feel.
Yeah, especially in this film, I needed to be able to glean as much emotion from the characters as possible on the frame, because to me this film was more, it was important that the characters came across very, very well for the rest of the story to work. You needed to understand their motivations, and you needed to understand their emotional state in order to get the story. And I think because of that, I really needed to be involved and very close up with the actors, with the camera, as often as possible. I've done films since then which are not that way. They're more of like a action movie, for example. And I like to stay wider in action movies because it's more about what's happening physically in the frame rather than emotionally or in someone's eyes. You can get to those moments in an action film, and it really helps to make the scenes more intense. And so I think I bring that to the table with action movies as well. But in this film, it wasn't so much about the action. There was a lot of action, of course. We did the fighting and with Derek and Tyler, but the whole rest of the film is standing on this emotion and the relationships and the characters. So I had to figure out a way to make that really interesting and impactful, because people are so glossed over these days. It's easy to just not pay attention for a second. So you have to hit things a little bit on the head sometimes for people, and get real close up on it so they can know that's important. Because if you don't show that, if you know it's important and you show it in a medium shot or whatever, it can easily be slipping through the cracks for your audience. Sometimes you have to really get close and really show them things. You can do it in a way that's subtle, where maybe they don't notice it, really, but subliminally they catch it because you're right up on it. And I think that's the beauty of an insert shot. And I learned that on this film, how important insert shots are, because little details would slip through the cracks of the audience sometimes. And so I'd throw that insert in there for a second and they'd get it. They'd understand it. Even if it was a subliminal understanding, the scene felt complete. And so not only is being in there with the actors and all that stuff important, but I would notice something that they did with their hand, or I would notice something that they did a certain way where they would set the cigarette and they would flick the ash of the cigarette. I want that little piece of detail that their character is giving me, because it's important sometimes more than what they're saying or what their face is showing, because they can be providing emotional cues in other parts of their body as well. So I guess that's why I do it. That's why I am a cinematographer and a director, because I can be in there and notice those things. Instead of just seeing only what is in the frame, I can look down there and see what he's doing real quick and come back to the frame. I can be right up on it and hear something that they said that maybe wasn't coming through the mic or whatever. Some people aren't mic'd, you're not always getting the full picture when you're just sitting behind two monitors or a monitor. It's hard. I guess it's a complicated explanation, but when you asked me that, I had to think about it, and that's really what I think it comes down to. Is it's easier to be observant when I'm that close to them.